Live Now DT, Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, to couple with MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com. So welcome into the broadcast here, the Fantasy Football Power Hour, not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour happens every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This week we moved it off to Thursday as my co-host here, Mr. Mike Sofka, had a little change in the schedule, so we were able to move it here for you today, and we're happy to bring it to you, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. They are open 7 days a week for you in that Home Depot Plaza for indoor and outdoor dining. They also have a volleyball court for you to have some fun with, especially here in the summer. And, of course, you can head off to them and connect with them for takeout, delivery, and catering. 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat Sports Pub. So make sure you reach out to them in that respect as well. If you're staying at home or you just need something brought to the house quickly, you got a party going on, whatever's happening, make sure you get in touch with the Wildcat Sports Pub. With that being said, speaking of getting in touch, it's time to get in touch with our brother of the show here, Mr. Mike Sofka. Let's bring the man in. Mr. Sofka, Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, and our joint venture of Winning Fantasy Football, the group on Facebook. How are you doing, my good sir?
Awesome. How are you, Dan?
Doing very well. And Mike, 2021 best moves, we're talking about what we've seen in the offseason. Which move would you like to start with? I got some on my mind. I'm sure you have some on yours. We'll bounce them back and forth. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the one that jumps out in front of me the most is the Rams and the Lions essentially trading quarterbacks. And I didn't know Matt Stafford was so much better than Jared Goff, but apparently he is, and
yeah.
And we're going to find out. I mean, I nothing against Matt Stafford, but I think Jared Goff is a step down for Detroit from Matt Stafford, but I don't know what they gave up for him. I mean, they gave up a lot. I don't think that Goff is as bad as people lend him out to be. However, the Detroit team around him is going to be as bad. So I think Stafford's going to a better situation for him. And, I'll tell you what, the coaches can't be wrong here. So McVay's going to do everything in his power to make sure that he sets Matt Stafford up for success. The last thing he wants to do is make himself look foolish because he could be out the door relatively soon. The Rams haven't been relevant recently. So I think Goff is going to try to make McVay. I'm sorry. I think McVay is going to try to make Goff look smart because of the trade. So we'll see what happens here. It's going to be interesting to me with Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford has. I think he has some game in him. I just don't know if he's that much better than Goff. Do you?
Here's the thing. I think that Matt Stafford. My gut is telling me that Stafford's going to have a better season than Goff this season. That's what my gut is telling me. Now, Matt Stafford is going to a team with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee and Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers. He's got a lot of talent, right? So there's no excuses. And Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp have done some good things. So I think over history, and really their best, Cooper Kupp's done his thing with the Rams, but Robert Woods, who started in Buffalo, he's really shown out to be the best in this situation. So I like it. And I like the move. I think it's going to be good for Matt Stafford. Hey, let's say he's got 2 seasons left in him. I think these might be, 2 very good seasons for him to make a move because we don't know where San Fran's going to head. We expect Seattle to be, somewhat on par because, look at who they have in Russell Wilson. So, and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett has definitely caught my eye in a way that he didn't catch it before. So I think there's a lot of good to be had here with Seattle. San Fran's a question mark, and Arizona's got a lot of talent, and I think they're a dark horse, and the Rams have a lot of talent. This is going to be a really fun division to watch, and I think that Matt's got a chance here to make a push toward the playoffs if he can make some relationships right away. I think that this is going to be a good move, ultimately, for them. I like it, and I really do. I think I'm Detroit. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, here's my thing. I get it. I know Matt Stafford's an improvement, how much of an improvement is he worth a 2021 third-round pick that they gave up and 2 first-round picks in 2022 and 2023? So, I mean, this is a weird situation. I mean, they're putting 2 first-round picks on a guy, and he has that short of a window. I just wonder what's going on. I wonder if he's really worth 2 first-round picks.
Well, and this is the thing, and that's where I was definitely working to here is if it was Matt Stafford straight up for Jared Goff, I think the Rams won. But knowing that Detroit, if Goff busts, Detroit really doesn't lose because they can go draft a quarterback and draft somebody else and have their draft picks so that they already had. So I think, to me, Detroit won the trade in the overall value of draft picks that they got. But I think the Rams won the Rams won the head-to-head quarterback. The Detroit Lions won the actual trade itself. And that is because, and I agree with you, Mike. When you said, is he worth it? No. He's not worth 2 first-rounders. Absolutely not. So, in a third-rounder, that's great value. So, I don't think that at all. I mean, if Yannick Ngakoue in his rookie contract wasn't worth a first-rounder for Jacksonville, then I find it really hard to believe that we can turn around and say that Matt Stafford, in all these years he's played, and when he's closer to his way out than his way in, would he be worth 2 first-rounders? Is no. Detroit definitely, who's made a lot of bad decisions, this is a great decision. How do you lose? If Jared Goff busts and this doesn't work out, you have so much trade capital, it's not even funny. So to me, I love it for Detroit for the future. I love it for the Rams this season. That's how I look at this trade. I'm not sold on Jared Goff. I haven't been sold on Jared Goff. I was more sold on Carson Wentz. I know he doesn't stay healthy, but I think he's done more, obviously. So for me, I think Detroit is built toward the future if they draft correctly. And I think the Rams right now with Matt Stafford could see a season where people actually get really excited about the quarterback for the first time since maybe Kurt Warner, that they're getting excited and that they can really get jazzed and be like, wow, we got a vet, we got a guy. So I think both teams won, but at different times for different reasons, ultimately. The one I want to look at, kind of throw at you here, Mike, is Julio Jones in Tennessee. I mean, Julio goes out publicly. Joe Forgione was on the show yesterday. We were talking about it. And Julio, just kind of says, because this is what people do now, they air their dirty laundry on social media. And listen, I mean, we've all said things and done things. I've sent out a cryptic message or two before. Okay, I'm not going to say I haven't. But Julio, basically, in my mind, what did I say to you? I was like, I don't think he's going to stay in Atlanta. I mean, I said that before it happened. I was like, I don't see this thing, I don't see it ending. I mean, Julio's got to be done soon. They have to start moving on from him and moving on from Matt Ryan. Well, Julio comes out and kind of makes it known that he doesn't want to be there. And then, Joe was talking about yesterday how, Julio had said he didn't want to play for Dallas. So it was, where was he going to go? He ends up going to Tennessee. And to me, Julio had it made in Atlanta. He was the number one guy. If he got hurt and came back, he was the number one guy. If he did something stupid and came back, he was the number one guy. He was always the number one guy. He got good numbers from Matt Ryan. It worked out. But now he's in Tennessee. And Ryan Tannehill has had a resurgence of his career. And Adam Gase, who couldn't get it done in Miami, couldn't get it done with the Jets, didn't get it done with Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill goes to Tennessee, and all of a sudden Ryan Tannehill looks like a draftable quarterback as a backup. A low-end one, high-end two. And maybe let's call him the 15th best in the, somewhere in the top 15 in the nation, so to speak. And so Julio Jones going to Ryan Tannehill, having Derrick Henry, and having A.J. Brown on the other side, who's a number one, who was the number one on the team, I think this is a great situation for Julio Jones. I think it makes them extremely hard to defend. I think the AFC South is going to struggle, the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars, and covering Tennessee twice a year. But what's your take on it? Because to me, Julio Jones going to Tennessee, I think he had a better, cushy, relaxing job where he couldn't really do anything wrong in Atlanta. But now he's in Tennessee, and they have young guys. They have young guns. They got rid of Corey Davis, but they still have A.J. Brown. They got rid of Tajay Sharp. But they're in a position right now where getting Julio is a potential reward for them. But Julio's going to have to perform because Derrick Henry's going to get a lot of touches, which Atlanta didn't have that. Atlanta didn't have a running back that they could trust. They didn't have a dominant guy in Tevin Coleman. They didn't have a dominant guy in Devontae Freeman. They shared the time. They didn't have a dominant guy in Todd Gurley, who was a one-year mistake. So he didn't have to deal with that the last couple seasons, really, a bunch of seasons. So, it's been Julio, and like I said, he couldn't do anything wrong in Atlanta. He was always going to have the job. He was like grandfathered in forever and a day. Now that he's in Tennessee, if he's not doing a good job, A.J. Brown could take that away from him. Derrick Henry's going to get a ton of touches. This is a guy that can get 2,000 yards on the ground for a season. So I think he kind of has to realize kind of where he is. And, yeah, Derrick Henry can open him up, and there's opportunities that can help, and A.J. Brown can open him up too. But he has to perform on a young team that's looking to surge forward. And he could end up being one of those guys that everybody knew his name, and then he falls down the depth chart. Or he could go there and be just as phenomenal. What do you think about the Julio Jones move?
You brought up an interesting thing when you said he didn't want to go to Dallas. You know why? Look at Dallas's receivers. I mean, he may have been the third best receiver on that team, so I get it. You got to remember, Julio Jones is 32. When we think of things in our past, we always usually think of one of two things, the extreme good or the extreme bad. And there's not been a lot of extreme bad from Julio Jones. So our only thoughts are all positive and, he's a top player. And, he's 32. He missed 7 games last year. He had 770 yards or something like that. He had like 3 touchdowns, and Calvin Ridley was taking a lot of the touchdowns in Atlanta. Well, pulling Julio from the Atlanta team, Atlanta's already lived without him for Ridley's going to be able to hold up. But I think the bigger question is on Julio Jones. I think Tennessee got a great deal for him. They essentially sent a 6th-round pick in 2023, and they ended up getting a 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round and a 4th-round pick that's conditional. Here's the deal. We've talked about it before, that it's not just ability that gets you to where you want to be in the NFL. It's availability. And you got to wonder, at 32 and coming off an injury-riddled season and not really being the touchdown guy that he needed to be on his own team, it just brings a lot of questions into play here. So, I think A.J. Brown is going to be able to learn some things from Julio Jones, and that's important. They brought in Des Fitzpatrick. I think he's going to learn from Julio Jones in that respect as well. And I think having A.J. Brown out there and having a solid running back like Derrick Henry is going to help Julio Jones' game. Because remember, the past couple of years in Atlanta, they really haven't had the rushing attack that they needed. So this could be a good move for everybody. I think it's a great move for Tennessee. Now, are they going to adjust their offense a little bit? Because they're not a pass-happy offense, and A.J. Brown's solidly the number 1 guy there. So I don't think A.J. Brown's in danger. I do have Julio Jones marked down significantly from where, some fans may used to be seeing him in the top 5, the top 3, what have you. I got him at number 19 on my rankings through my projections this year. So I think it's a good move for everybody. Meanwhile, you take a look at how this affects a guy like Calvin Ridley. I got him ranked number 4 this year. So it bumps him up and bumps Julio Jones down. So I think the big winner is Calvin Ridley, and the guy who's stretching out his career a little more and still has something to prove. Field, he's still going to have ability, and he's still going to have availability. So hopefully it'll work out for Julio Jones this year as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If Calvin can step in and be a number 1 and take those number 1, situational pieces where the number 1 DB is on you now and not on Julio Jones, if he can it's a big if. If he can handle it and he can still get those good numbers, we're in a good place. But remember, the numbers you love of Calvin Ridley of 3 seasons of fantasy football have come with Julio Jones on the other side. Yes, he's been injured at times, but he's on the other side normally. So remember that. Calvin Ridley now being the number 1 receiver, can he handle getting the number 1 DB on him? Can he handle that corner facing him in single coverage, man-to-man, Where are we going to be with that? That's going to be a question mark. Another trade or another offseason move I want to take a look at is something that I mentioned this week. Carson Wentz going to the Colts. Philadelphia acquired a 2022 second-round pick, which becomes a 2022 first-round pick if Wentz plays 75% of the snaps or 70% of the snaps and the Colts make the playoffs. They also got a third-round pick this year, but they traded away that pick. So really, they traded Carson Wentz straight up for a second-round pick next year that could be a first-round pick. What are your thoughts on this? Philadelphia has Jalen Hurts as their quarterback, which is it's crazy how we were asking, is it going to be Carson Wentz or Nick Foles? Now it's neither. Now it's Jalen Hurts. What's your take on Philadelphia essentially trading away that third-round pick? So they traded Carson Wentz straight up for a second-round pick, and they're banking on the fact that he plays 75% of the snaps, and he has been injury-prone. And if he does play 75% of the snaps or 70% and the Colts make the playoffs, they get a first-round pick, but they're not going to use it on a quarterback because they have Jalen Hurts. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. We were just talking about Goff, and now we're talking about Wentz, and these are two guys that were 1 and 2 in the draft here. And I look at what's around Wentz. I think he's got a pretty decent situation. He's got an improved situation over where he was in Philadelphia. He has his former offensive coordinator from his spectacular 2017 season. Frank Wright knows how to get Wentz opportunities. Frank Wright was a quarterback. Frank Wright is going to be able to get the most out of Wentz, and I think when you combine that with what's around him, with the running attack that they have there, and with the receivers that they have there, they have a good young core, and I just think it's a sad situation for Philadelphia. It wasn't not long ago that they were one of the top teams in the league, winning a Super Bowl, and Philadelphia, they were going to be the beast in the East, and now players are talking about front office problems and coaching problems. Just it's really sad for Philadelphia. But you look at what Wentz goes from, and then what he goes to a T.Y. Hilton, who I still think has some game left. He goes to young receivers who get to prove themselves, mostly due to injury. But these guys like Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, Jonathan Taylor has been spectacular. Naeem Hines can catch the ball. They still have Marlon Mack and Jordan Wilkins to back him up as well. So I really think that this is a great situation for Wentz. However, I'm not going to get overly excited here. I'm not going to say Wentz is the next best thing since sliced bread. He's still got his work cut out for him. I have him rising on my rankings, but right now I have to have him number 17 on my rankings.
Yeah, and as we look at this, speaking with Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com and our joint venture Winning Fantasy Football, which is a group you can join for free on Facebook by typing in Winning Fantasy Football to the Facebook search bar, and you'll find us right there. Click join, and you'll be able to hang out with Mike and I 24/7, so make sure you do that. We're inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. Mike, I know we're talking about the best moves, but I want to throw in some other moves that I wouldn't consider to be the best. I do want to go back for a second to Detroit. Detroit gets Jared Goff. They give up Matt Stafford. They get a 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick, plus their own first-round picks, plus they had a 2021 third-round pick, which they used, pick 101, on my guy, Afatu Melifonwu, cornerback out of Syracuse. So I just wanted to shout that out and remind everybody how much trade capital Detroit has, because it's sick and it's awesome, and if they do it right, they're going to benefit for years, more so than what the Rams will get for a couple of years. But like I said, I do think Matt Stafford is the better of the two, and I think he has a better season this season than Jared Goff. Here's one that was sad. The Jacksonville Jaguars a couple of years ago drafted Josh Oliver. Again, they didn't have a tight end. And listen, for what I said before, I respect James O'Shaughnessy. I've interviewed James O'Shaughnessy. I like James O'Shaughnessy. He is the guy that is on the team that I would... They haven't thought that he's enough, hence why they keep bringing in other people. That's what I'm... That they don't, I think of him as a dominant starter. Well, they go out a couple years ago, they draft Josh Oliver. This guy's injured the whole time he's in Jacksonville pretty much. He barely plays. His rookie season, he didn't play. Jacksonville gives him up to Baltimore. They get a 2022 7th-round pick. I guess it's good to get anything from him, but how sad was this pick by the Jaguars where unfortunately you draft a guy who's never healthy. Now he's backing up Mark Andrews in Baltimore. But, I mean, at least Jacksonville got something for him, but a 7th-round pick for a guy that was supposed to be your starting tight end, arguably. What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, again, we talked about it just a few minutes ago. The best ability is availability, and he wasn't available. So, in a way, I can understand because this is a business. But at the same time, you spent a 3rd-round pick on this cat in 2019. He's got the size, 6'5", 250. He's still a young player, and the Ravens snatched him up. The Ravens would like to have that 1-2 combo with Mark Andrews. Nick Boyle's more so the blocking tight end, but they got a good 1-2 punch. But if they can make something out of Josh Oliver, and Baltimore's looking to try to do a deal with Philly for Zach Ertz still as well. So, Baltimore's definitely hungry in the tight end position. You would think Jacksonville would be that way, but I don't know. Maybe we're in for a new look in Jacksonville. Maybe the tight end's not going to be as prominent. Maybe just a red zone threat or an occasional first down threat. And who better to have in Jacksonville than a guy like Tebow who can do so many things multi-dimensionally for you. They're looking toward the future by bringing Luke Farrell in. For all we know, because there's a lot that's not said, for all we know, Josh Oliver was in camp and they were able to keep him around for depth and because he was injured, but maybe they realized they made a mistake. Sometimes this happens. You look at the Carson Wentz, Jared Goff situation. Those were number 1 and number 2 picks in their draft, and both teams are now like, oh, that was a mistake. Well, it seems like just yesterday, but it's a not for long business. The NFL, not for long. I mean, you got to be able to get in the game. Number 1, get on the field. Make sure you're physically capable to get on the field. Then you got to perform when you're on the field. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes down to not being available. And that's what happened here with Josh Oliver.
Yeah, and then we see Houston acquires Ryan Izzo, tight end from the Patriots. And the Patriots also, like Jacksonville, get a 2022 7th-round pick. The Patriots go out and get starter Hunter Henry from the Chargers, and they go out and get starter Jonnu Smith from the Titans. Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene that they drafted recently here, neither one of these guys panned out, and they get rid of Ryan Izzo. Are you surprised that Devin and Dalton are still on the team, knowing that Hunter and Jonnu are there? I mean, maybe there's nobody out there wanting to trade for them because they really haven't proven themselves. But what's your take on Houston, who has struggled to find who their dominant tight end's going to be? They bring in Ryan Izzo. The Patriots get a 7th-round pick in 2022 for him, but the Patriots have 2 guys that they drafted, and in front of those guys, they have 2 starters. So what are your thoughts on the Patriots? I mean, they don't lose by getting rid of one of their 5 guys, but are you surprised that they've kept Asiasi and Keene on the team still?
In a way, it's always nice to have, especially going through training camp. It's always nice to have guys who are familiar with the system that can get in that tight end zone. It's systems or everything. The Patriots are a different team. They did take a page out of my book when they brought in both guys, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. However, I usually use this analogy, and it usually comes true the most when you're looking at drafting. I've used the term before. If you're thirsty and you're going to the well to get some water, you don't go there and get one sip and then leave. You take a sip of water, but you take some water with you when you go. And that's what you're doing in a draft. When you have a glaring need at tight end, you take 2 of them. You take 2 guys that you had on your draft board. This way, one of them is more bound to work out. I mean, top 10 draft picks have a 50% success rate in the NFL overall. So if one of these guys is going to work out. In a veteran situation, this is going to be a curious situation when you bring 2 guys in for a position like the past in mind when he's looked like he had the past with and the other guy from the years who I shall keep nameless here. Yeah. Jonnu Smith had a pretty good thing going for himself at Tennessee. Hunter Henry had a good thing going for himself at the Chargers. And both these things were contract and business decisions. Dalton Keene knows the system. Asiasi I had pegged for a dark horse tight end to eventually break out. that advancement by him is going to be impeded by Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry's sheer presence. We're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets, and heaven forbid one of them go down, the other one has a tremendous opportunity. So, you know, I do kind of like what Belichick did. Belichick said, look, I'm not going to get the guy I want in a draft. I'm not going to get Kyle Pitts. Just drafting Devin Asiasi. I'm drafting Dalton King. He doesn't want that. He wants somebody that's going to come in and immediately step up. He has a veteran quarterback for now until Matt Jones gets going. He has several running backs he can use on any given day. Now he has the 2 tight ends, and he needs those guys because the wide receiver group isn't that strong. Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, and N'Keal Harry hasn't really impressed since he's been there. So, I mean, I see an opportunity for both of these guys to thrive in this offense. And when I say thrive, let's temper the expectations here. I don't mean they're tight end ones. If it was just one of them there, one of them would be the tight end one. But I got these guys ranked 14 and 15 on my PPR rankings this year so far.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's very interesting to see where they're going to go with this and how this is going to really pan out, and you know how they're going to utilize this. But like you said, you draft 2. You know, Hayden Hurst, Mark Andrews, both drafted by Baltimore. Hayden didn't work. He was drafted before Mark. Mark rose all the way to the top 3 in fantasy last year, and then he dipped a little bit, and he's in the top 5 for people as we move into this season here. I do want to make a note before we take a step aside for a fast break that Tennessee acquired Julio Jones by giving up a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 fourth-round pick, but they also pulled in a 2023 sixth-round pick. So think about this. If you're Atlanta and you're making this trade, you give up your star wide receiver for a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick, and you still not only give Julio Jones to Tennessee, but you give them a pick as well in 2023. I think Tennessee won this one, depending on what Atlanta does with their second. I mean, depending on what they do with the picks, obviously, which we don't know yet. But to get Julio Jones, I wouldn't think you would have to give another pick as well. But to know that Atlanta got 2 things, Tennessee got 2 things, and in the here and now, Tennessee got the better of those 2 things. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes as we move forward here. And we will move forward on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora into a fast break. Proudly presented in here by the Wildcat Sports Pub. This is the Fantasy Football Power Hour, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Make sure you head out there 7 days a week. And, of course, you can go to them for takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. They're also available for you to reach out as far as catering goes. 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat Sports Pub. We'll take a step aside on Wake Up Call inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. We'll come back with more moves of 2021's offseason to get you ready for fantasy football and let you know what our thoughts are as we step forward into this amazing upcoming season.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street, as well as inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital. Those are all in Syracuse, and we thank Golisano for all that they're doing for our community and for our kids. And we pray for, obviously, good news for all the families today and every day. And in the name of God, amen. And do want to also shout out the wonderful people that work out at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and the newest location, which is the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road. Sweetheart Corner is nostalgic to everybody that knows Central and Upstate New York, and especially Syracuse. So out there in North Syracuse, you'll find Cafe Kubal's drive-through location at Sweetheart Corners, the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road. So, with all that being stated, we are inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour with Mr. Mike Sofka, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. And the next one to talk about here, Mike, the moves made in the offseason, I want to get to the Teddy Bridgewater one. Denver is very ironic that John Elway has been in the front office of Denver, and he's their best quarterback ever. Yet John Elway seems like he can't find a quarterback that can stick in Denver. So the irony of being a really good quarterback, but not having an eye for one, maybe. They have Drew Lock. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater. He had 2 years left. Well, he had a 3-year contract with Carolina, which he had this year, and then the next year I think was an option. Well, Carolina traded him to Denver, got a 2021 6th-round pick, which they traded away. So Carolina, didn't really get much of anything out of this. And they give up Teddy Bridgewater, and here he is in Denver. What are your thoughts on this? Should anybody draft the Denver team quarterback? Should they draft any of the quarterbacks? In my league, you get the team one. So if Drew Lock comes in for 3 weeks, then it's Teddy Bridgewater. You get them both. What's your thought on Teddy Bridgewater's journeyman life? He was in Minnesota. He was supposed to be the starter. He got hurt. I covered him when he was at Louisville. He didn't make it in Minnesota, but there was a lot of hype. Then he moves on. We see him all over the place. At one point, he's with the Jets. And then he ends up in New Orleans. He fills in for Drew Brees, and he helps keep the team in a playoff push and gets them to the playoffs. And Carolina sees that. They pick him up. They sign him for 3 years. They give him the reins after they took it away from Cam Newton. And not even a year there, they let him go to Denver for literally nothing. What's your take on Teddy Bridgewater, and is there any value for him now in Denver?
Yeah, I think there is, and that's primarily because of the situation. A lot of people don't remember this, but, Pat Shurmur and Teddy Bridgewater worked together in that Vikings offense. So he might have a leg up on Locke, who had a okay rookie year, and then he didn't really splash last year. So, the whole thing with John Elway, he might be the best quarterback in their whole organization right now. John Elway might be. And I don't think John Elway is going to be taking the field anytime soon.
Yeah.
Bridgewater's been around. At one time before he decided to stay with the Saints, he had the opportunity to go to Miami as a starter. But he chose to stay thinking he would parlay and bet on himself, and he went to Carolina, and that he just didn't look like he fit the system there. So I think that Bridgewater's going to fit the system. Remember, he was shining in Minnesota before his injury that kind of sent his whole career in a tumble here and sent him packing and traveling all over the country for different teams. This may be the end of Drew Lock if Teddy Bridgewater wins the starting job. And on the other side of the coin, if Drew Lock wins the starting job, he's going to be on thin ice because there's a guy that knows the system right behind him, and he's a veteran. So, the most popular guy on most NFL teams is the backup Teddy Bridgewater wins the starting job. And on the other side of the coin, if Drew Lock wins the starting job, he's going to be on thin ice because there's an injury and he gets out there and says right behind him, and he's a veteran. Everybody's going to say, he's doing on most NFL teams the backup stepping up and not letting them look bad. No, your job as the quarterback is to make your team look good. Your job as a quarterback is to make first downs and drive the football down the field, put your team in a position to score. So I think it could be Bridgewater. It's something to say out there. Bridgewater and Locke. There's no telling what's going to happen. So as we get closer to week 1, we're going to learn more.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see it. I don't think Locke has locked anything up. Pun very fully intended on that. And so I think it's wide open in Denver. Baltimore was involved in a trade back in April with Kansas City. Kansas City desperately had shown themselves in the Super Bowl that they needed help protecting Pat Mahomes. They went out and got Orlando Brown Jr., tackle from Baltimore, and they got him as well as a 2021 second-round pick, which they used Nick Bolton, a linebacker, at 58 overall, and they have a sixth-round pick in 2022. Baltimore acquired by giving up Orlando Brown and a couple picks. Baltimore got a 2022 fifth-round pick, a 2021 first-round pick, 31st overall that they used on Jason Owe, defensive end, a 2021 third-round pick they used on Ben Cleveland, a guard, and a 2021 fourth-round pick that they traded away. So Baltimore utilized the fact that Kansas City really needed somebody and needed somebody now. Kansas City at the bottom of the first round at 31, Mike and I thought they were going to draft an offensive lineman. What they ended up doing is trading it away so that they could take a veteran offensive lineman from Baltimore and then let Baltimore have a couple picks in 2021. What's your take on Kansas City saying, you know what, we don't want to get new blood, we want to get blood that's been around the block, and they bring in Orlando Brown, who had been blocking for Lamar Jackson, to now block for Pat Mahomes?
I think it's huge. You look at the Super Bowl. Kansas City went into that Super Bowl basically without their tackles. They had a banged-up offensive line a lot of the year. And if you remember, you could go back and play the pre-Super Bowl show. I had mentioned that the line of scrimmage play, basically the defensive line of Tampa and the offensive line of Kansas City was where that game was going to be won. It was going to be won in the trenches. And Tampa had the guys that were able to get the job done pressuring the quarterback. So there's two things you need to do. There's two things that are paramount in the NFL if you want to win games. You got to put pressure on the other quarterback, and you got to protect your quarterback. And I know that they have an outstanding quarterback in Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I know he can run and he's evasive, and he can get out of trouble and he can throw the ball and make something happen on a busted play. But it's still the NFL. These guys are still incredibly fast. Orlando Brown's an excellent offensive lineman. He's going to do wonders for this offensive line. It's just yet to be seen. Sometimes offensive lines need time to gel together. It's like a partnership, and you guys are holding up an entire wall, and you need to know what those other 4 or 5 guys are doing, because you need to know that you're able to hold up your end, plus help out your buddy there if he needs as well. So an offensive line is like a cohesive, flowing object. So he's a pro, though, Orlando Brown. I think it's not going to be a problem. I think they're going to pick right up where they left off in Kansas City.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. In Kansas City, they really didn't put themselves in a bad way here, because they took his contract, right? And his contract is up next year. So they have him this year, and then they'll see, because, this only a few years of experience in the NFL, so they have him this year, and then they'll see what happens. And if they want to keep him, they keep him. If they don't, they don't. If he pans out, great. I do like this opportunity for them, because they're not really risking a lot, and they're bringing something in that could be very helpful. And Mike, any final ones before we wrap?
And safety John Johnson, I think those are some key moves there. They brought in a rookie linebacker that was one of the highly touted ones in the draft, and Owusu Koromoa. And I think that the defense for Cleveland could make a difference, a quarterback on his own team. They can help you get into a scoring situation. They can help you get out of a bad mistake too. So I think that's going to be huge for Cleveland and Baker Mayfield. Look for them to be on the rise this year.
Yeah, and we'll look to see what Cleveland can do. I mean, they're if you look at by some of the numbers, depending on how you score your fantasy season, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb both ended in the top 10 at running back and shared time there on the same team. So looking at Kareem Hunt, kind of the home run hitter, and Nick Chubb more of the guy that gets the majority of the carries, is how things shook out, and that's what it looked like ultimately. But both of them doing a fantastic job. And for those of you that are moaning and crying and worrying and, oh my gosh, Tim Tebow, they didn't even spend $1 million on the guy. $920,000, and it's a one-year contract, so let's relax. Now, I do want to make note of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moves that they did make. You know, Mike, you're talking about the stuff that they kind of brought in and re-signing everybody and all that. There's a lot of moves that they had here, and I want to get into them. So they have done a lot of signings since May, brought a lot of guys in here, and I want to make note of a few of them. They re-signed Blaine Gabbert and got him for another year at $1.5 million. And believe it or not, he has a Super Bowl ring, Jacksonville fans. Also, KJ Britt signed a 4-year, $3.74 million contract with Tampa Bay. And we've seen Antonio Hamilton, 1-year, $990,000 contract at corner. We have seen them they signed another running back in Troymaine Pope, 1-year, $990,000 contract. And Kyle Trask, who they drafted, they signed him for 4 years, $5.53 million to be potentially the heir apparent to Tom Brady, who's going to be, 44, 45. And then Joe Tryon, who they drafted at the end of the first round, 4 years, $11.1 million with Tampa at defensive end. So Mike bringing that up, just wanted to make some notes there and finish that off for today. Mike, as always, we're stepping closer and closer in. We've done our mock draft 1.0. We got 2.0 coming up very soon. I would say we're going to do that with the next show. So we have mock draft 2.0 that's going to be coming up. We have so many videos for you to watch. I'm going to reshare them all on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm going to let you all know how you can connect with everything. It's very easy. We're going to put it up on the wakeupcalldt.com fantasy football tab, fantasy football cast. We're going to add everything in there for you and make it really, really easy for you to prep for your season here in July. So, Mike, as always, thank you for the library of great knowledge, and I'm going to make sure we get it out to the fans. And I appreciate you as always. Hall of Fame fantasyfootball.com, Winning Fantasy Football, the group on Facebook. Join today for free. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Sofka?
No, it's been great. I really appreciate it once again. Appreciate the opportunity. And I do have some low-cost options to help you win your fantasy league this year, whether you're new to fantasy or whether you've been around for a while and just need to get over that hump of the playoffs or what have you. I do have a playoff guarantee as well. So this is it. This is the busy time of year for me. I got draft sheets coming in and going out of this office like crazy. So if you want to win your draft, which will help you win your league, just go to my site, halloffamefantasyfootball.com, and keep watching on Winning Fantasy Football, the Facebook group. Thanks again, Dan.
Absolutely. Email dtstays@gmail.com ASAP to reserve a spot in one of our fantasy football leagues, and we'll talk with you soon, Mike. Take care.
All right, thanks.
So that coming from Mike Sofka one more time, halloffamefantasyfootball.com. Make sure that you check it out. And we will take our final step aside of today's show and wrap up and get you ready for TGIF right after this. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, is our home for the Liverpool Warriors monthly exclusive sit-down broadcast brought to you by Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We speak with Liverpool athletics, student athletes, coaches, and more every single month at Avicoli's exclusively. And, of course, Avicoli's is open for you Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. They have the pizza casual side, they have the fine dining side, and they also have an opportunity for you to hang out at the bar, eat at the bar, and, of course, you can also go to them and enjoy their outdoor dining now here in our beautiful weather. So make sure you find your way over to Avicoli's today And you can also get in touch with them for takeout, delivery, and catering by calling their number 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. Definitely looking forward to everything we get to do with Avicoli's, and we thank them so much. Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. I want to give them a shout out for all that they've done for Lily and all of our furry loving friends in the community. For long and short-term care for your dogs, Canine Campground for the long-term care, short-term care, obviously the Canine Camp Dog Daycare. The campground is located on 242 Johnson Street, right down the road from the daycare, which is located on 228 Old Bridge Street, both in East Syracuse, and very, very easy to get to from the highway, the thruway, right off of Erie Boulevard. Very, very convenient. Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the perfect place to trust with your animal. No matter what the size of your dog or what the breed of your dog is safe and sound with them. They make an effort to make sure that every dog coming in has a good temperament and plays well with others. Make sure everybody has their shots so that we can truly feel safe and have a peace of mind when we drop off our animals with them. So thank you to Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding of East Syracuse. PB&J's Lunchbox, you have known their food truck for going all over central and upstate New York, and they continue to do so. But now you can go to their Street Side Cafe. So when you're craving the food from the food truck, you can go get the entire menu, run the whole gamut, and find out things you didn't even know that they had by going to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, Street Side Cafe. Minutes from Destiny, USA, Onondaga Lake Parkway, the thruway, and the highway. PB&J's Lunchbox, located in a perfect place for you. You can't miss it, right by Sant'Angelo's, 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, home of the award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, minutes from the beautiful and pristine Skaneateles Lake. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the perfect place for you to go from head to toe. Whatever your injury is, call them today at 315-685-7544. I've trusted them for almost a decade with my body and my health and my wellness. And whether it's rehab and physical therapy, preventative care, or surgery, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to make sure that they put you on the road to victory the first time, and every day is a step in the right direction. They care about their clients. They listen to their clients. Patients matter at Victory, and I cannot stress that enough. 315-685-7544. Make the call today. With that being stated, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, I want to thank you all for being a part of today's broadcast and hanging out with us where sports meets life. Truly appreciate it every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we've done 3-hour shows this week. You know that we do that. I think we did 2 3-hour shows or 3 3-hour shows this week, something like that. So I want to thank you all. But typically Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldT, facebook.com/livenowdt, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.com. Of course, you can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Stitcher, Spotify, MixLR, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Podbean, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and find all of our broadcasts there as well. Over 1,500 shows on Podbean alone. So go to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on any one of these outlets, and you can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on them, or one word, Wake Up Call DT, and find me there. And a proud thanks to all of our beautiful and amazing partners: Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Mother's Cupboard, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Honda City of Liverpool, Pizza Man, Millhouse Market, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, PB&J's Lunchbox, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Use the promo code in any one of the 50 states and get 20% off at maandpaspopcorn.com. That's and spelled out, maandpaspopcorn.com. Use the promo code DT20 for 20% off today and every day. So make sure you do that. That is our exclusive for you to utilize just through this show, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So have a fantastic day. Be well. Stay safe. I'm honored that in video number 1 we had the return of PJ. It's been a couple weeks. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your well wishes. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your positive messages. And thank you to God, most of all, for bringing Papa Joe into my life and into yours. Thank you to Mike Sofka for all the amazing work he does for the Fantasy Football Power Hour and on HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com and on our Facebook group, Winning Fantasy Football. Join that today. And a big shout out to the Wildcat Sports Pub for all that they do. For now, from the Cafe Kubal Studios, Wake Up Call TGIF tomorrow. You know, 3 segments that you know so very well. The Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. Lead with Juanita Ward. Learn, Evolve, Adlib, and Deliver, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. The Top Dog of the Week will be announced, brought to you by Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. And I'll have a very special sit-down, awesome, amazing conversation about faith, football, what we've learned, and so much more, including name, image, and likeness from former Syracuse quarterback and wide receiver John Kinder, who joins us tomorrow from right outside the Buffalo area, and I'm very excited about that. So, with all that being said, find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. I'll talk with you soon. God bless you in heaven, Uncle Pat, and I'll talk to you all. Be well.